They actually managed to save the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! Hello, 34% of you that have not smashed love and crap out of that subscribe button. Smash it so we can climb up the 110,000 ladder here. So we have a breakdown here from Next Play. And I want to use this as like a state of the game to kind of talk about how rebalancing the game, fixing things, state of some formats right now, actually. So Next Play is a relatively more well-known store in the OCG community. And they just had their first January 2023 ban list tournament. Now, if you remember the nuclear, and I mean nuclear crazy ban list that we saw out of last week, then you definitely know that things have shifted. Now, to state that the format has shifted in such a crazy degree would be actually undermining it. And this is kind of crazy to me to see the level of diversity present in a local, because this tells me that players were also ready for change. Now, highest represented deck here is going to be Runic. This should be no surprise to you. Now, considering the fact that if you've been kind of keeping up with things, and you've kind of noticed last week out of the remote YCS here that Runic started showing its ugly head. Now, the OCG has had a triple card demise variant of this deck that's been running around, and it is absolutely nasty. It is some of the most unfun, pleasant experience that you could run against. Messenger pieces, and that's actually kind of where some of the ideas for the TCG inspired version came from, was from the OCG, where they're playing messenger pieces. They're citing DD Dynamites. They try to get kind of cheeky over there in terms of some of the things, but this deck's life goal is to mill out the opponent while using, the resource-based engine that Runic generates, and that's why kind of puts the deck ahead of a lot of other potential decks in the format. Is it's a very safe fallback on. Now, if you've been watching Master Duel as of late, I have an entire video coming down the pipeline talking about state of the game for Master Duel, and let me tell you, man, it is not a good place over there. I love Runic as a deck. I love it, but in a one-on-one vacuum, deck has got to be some of the most cancerous shit that you could ever deal with, especially when you don't have side deck cards. Oh, you're not maining any Cosmic Cyclones. Sucks to suck, nerd. You might be maining some Lightning Storms, but it's not like that the deck won't be able to recover. So in the vastness of the room right now, Runic's looking like a scary deck. Now, to say that it's totally unplayable to play against in the current state of the OCG is actually wrong. I would say that while Runic is starting to shape up to be one of the better decks, that it's not totally gone. Now, second highest representation seats here, you're going to see a lot of 2-ofs here on this pie chart. You're going to see Eldlich here, which you should be not surprised about this. Eldlich is always going to be like the fallback. Alright, Floodgate.deck, Conquistador, Spam Pop. This is really no shocker to me. Alright, well, good old Reliable, as we're going to call this. Now, you're also going to see Gishki down here. Now, the interesting thing about Gishki is, like, you can play Gishki Sprite. The OCG has a couple more hits to, the Sprite package than that, but they do get a power-up in Photon Hypernova that kind of puts Gishki back on the map as a relevant engine. I think that that's definitely something that you got to be aware of, is, Gishki actually being a semi-competent rogue strategy, especially in the fact that all of, the Gishki stuff is going to be level 2 and you can filter through all of that stuff. That definitely puts an interesting play on the meta to kind of keep up with. Now, we also have Spriggans down here. We made a video a while back talking about that you should probably pick up your Spriggans core. I'm still going to stick to that. I think that actually, there were a couple naysayers that showed up in that video. They're like, Imco40, what is your logic on picking up Spriggans? There's no way the deck will be good. Well, they got a soul charge. They got the ability to search for, Regulus and some other good stuff. And you can't tell me that picking up a deck core for $10 on the potential it could go up. We do call them penny stonks for a reason. And especially when you kind of take a look here at some of this stuff, post-Photon Hypernova and Cleanup, once again, this indicates to me that I was correct in that assumption that this is something worth considering. Now, Tri-Brigade, once again, standardized pickup. Not really surprised to see that this has shown up again. I mean, once again, Tribreed kind of fits the old reliable category as well. And we've seen that here as well. You know, like every time we kind of clean up the vastness of the format and you turn heads here a little bit and you're like, oh yeah, like this worked itself out. And that's perfectly understandable at the end of the day. You know, once you systematically start to tear through, you know, the meta game, you're going to start to see those shifts. And then we also had 2 Dragon Maid down here now. That one is kind of interesting to me, in my personal opinion, that Dragon Maid got the chance to shine at this stage, which is, you know what? I'll give it to them. Now, everything else that you're going to see over here on the rest of the pie chart is going to be one-ofs. Now, keep in mind that this is a little bit more localized. So I do see we have Lyricalisk, we have Dark World, we have Plunder Patrol, we have Altergeist. I can't tell what some of these are off the top of my head. They really just shoved these in here. I see that we have a tier player. Tier trying to be played after the insanity that was that list is crazy. I see we have Naturia. We have a Labyrinth. Now okay, so on the topic of Labyrinth, I was looking at a lot of prediction list out of the OCG and what players were deeming to be decks to kind of keep an eye on within the vastness of the format. And there were some very interesting opinions out here to really consider for the top end of the format. And Labyrinth was brought up a lot. Now, if you saw out of the last OCG YCS, we saw that the deck got, what was it, second place, losing out to Flounder, which a lot of people kind of turned heads, kind of looked around, and they were like, you know, because of these last results, nothing changed within the vastness of Labyrinth's game plan. No, nothing did change. The problem is Labyrinth is a deck that is very anti-meta in its construction. The deck has to be able to play around things. Like, you know, you play weight measuring and things like that to counteract and balance out, you know, large amounts of monsters that the opponent plays. I think the problem when you see such a shift back on the power scaling of the format here, a deck whose job is to use traps to kind of clean up large messes kind of falls back to the wayside here. And you kind of see Eldlich step back into the category here, being a better deck. It's an interesting comparison because I do think that Labyrinth in some situations is better than Eldlich as the deck to clean up larger problems within the format. But Eldlich is better at a slower, more open game state. Because it can kind of pressure out larger numbers and be a little bit more aggressive. Both of them are very good trap decks. It's interesting to see how both of these, I think Labyrinth just is going to need more time to kind of decide how it wants to handle the situation of the meta and give it some time to evolve. While Eldlich is just, boom, we already figured out what we're doing here at the end of the day. So some very interesting things there. I'll see the way of Blue Eyes and Sprite here. But overall, looking at this pie chart, this tells me a lot of things. Tells me that, one, they fixed their shit. Good stuff on the OCG. At least one part of the company seems to be competent at this point in time. I see that Runic is a menace now on 2 platforms. And I will go on record to say this, if you're expecting Runic not to get hit on Master Duel, it's going to happen. Konami now has full eyes on the deck. Konami's aware of what's going on. And considering the fact that it begins, more and more people are getting upsetty spaghetti about it. I understand that, like, there will always be problems in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh!, but there are some problems in the vastness of the format that become more problems later on. And you know what? We gave Runic a lot of crap. A lot of people gave Runic a lot of crap, saying that, my God, this deck is so trash, looking at certain other people in the community. But you know what? I'm glad it's finally getting its chance to shine. So I would consider this a fix to the format. Good stuff, Konami. Cashier just doesn't exist anymore. Sadness. So please, leave a comment down below, tell me what you guys think, and I'll see your beautiful faces back here later in the day, guys. Peace out. Patrons, thank you.
Thank you so much for watching. Check out these other videos.